I'm going to wait a second, make sure that it kicks in. All right, I don't think that we've been shy about tackling some of the tough topics on this show. We have not been afraid to go there. Austin, at not even Chris when he's joined, whether it be race or the intersection between sports and politics, NIL, what have you. And we have one of those topics today. So I have to warn you that this content may not be for everyone. It may not be for everyone, and you may find it offensive. And so just be forewarned, because we're going to tackle one of those topics today. This circulated a little bit on Twitter, and the question is which is more shocking for an adult to have never eaten, eggs or salad? Now, we're not talking about like eggs in a cake or something like that. Eggs Benedict, scrambled eggs. Don't be stupid, people. No, we mean that type of consumption of eggs. And so it's not just me, Matt, Austin, and Chris here today. We have brought a panel of experts to address this issue. Ray GQ, creator of Destination Devy and host of Wake Up TV. Which is more shocking for an adult to have eggs or salad?
What's more shocking? You haven't had a salad or you haven't had an egg? Both are absolutely absurd, ridiculous. And you both should be ashamed of yourselves. It's about as absurd as people who think that Jackson Smith and Jigba is a better wide receiver prospect than Kayshon Boutte. Both of you should be ashamed.
Brandon Lejeune, the Devy to Dynasty dashboard creator, also the creator of the Devy Summit. Brandon Lejeune, which is more shocking for an adult to have never eaten, eggs or salad?
Well, I think the word adult that you use in the question, I've got to go with a salad. I mean, a salad is on every menu. A salad is a staple appetizer before a meal. So if you weren't brought up with eggs and you didn't eat eggs when you were a young kid, I don't see why as an adult you would start eating eggs. So I'm going to say a salad. I think in the healthy environment, we're all trying to eat better. More adults are eating salads than eggs, although eggs are great in protein. My kids eat them a ton. Great protein. I love hard-boiled eggs. I love deviled eggs. I love scrambled eggs, fried eggs. I love all eggs, but it's got to be the salad, man.
That's a reasonable man right there. That is a reasonable person. Thank you, Brandon Lejeune. Hannah Lay of Campus to Canton and WKU Rivals. Hannah, which is more shocking for an adult to have never eaten, eggs or salad? We're having technical difficulties. We're going to come back to Hannah. Kevin Coleman of Football Guys and, of course, the Devy Royale podcast. Kevin Coleman, which is more shocking for an adult to have never eaten, eggs or salad?
Well, since I'm Portuguese, my mother's side, like eggs is the number one shocking thing. I've eaten eggs since I was like 6 months old. My mom, that was my first meal, I think. And even as an adult, and you work out, Felix, you probably got egg whites all in your fridge right now. You're lying because I know you. I see you on Instagram posting those pictures. But I think eggs is the number one. I cannot believe that people have never eaten eggs before in their life.
This is ridiculous. You're not taking this seriously. I need more reasonable people to answer this question. I need us to take this seriously, Kevin. You are making fun of the premise. Scott Belanger, a.k.a. Jax Falcone, host of The Undrafted of the Undroppables Network. Jax, which is more shocking for an adult to have never eaten, eggs or salad?
So I asked my family, and I had a very interesting. I have an 8 and a 6-year-old. The 6-year-old just rambled about not being as delicate with yourself, and I don't know what the fuck he was talking about. But the 8-year-old was brilliant. She said, "Well, there are vegetarians and vegans in this world, and so that would stand to reason that maybe someone had never eaten them because of, eaten eggs because of vegetarianism." And I thought that was a pretty smart answer for an 8-year-old. I didn't think of it. My wife actually gave the answer that you said. Don't be an idiot, which was, how the fuck have you never had a cake or anything with it? So she went there with the eggs. I will say, though, it would be completely shocking. I'm with Kevin. How could you have never eaten an egg? I mean, salad is one of those things you can be like, no, I don't eat salad. But eggs have been force-fed to you as a child. You had to have eaten a scrambled egg somewhere along the way. That's the take. That's it. I'm out.
I don't. These people, these are ridiculous answers. This is absolutely ridiculous, preposterous. Hill, contributor to Player Profiler, the Breakout Finder, and host of the Hero RB Show. Noah, which is more shocking for an adult to have never eaten eggs or salad?
Okay, I think there are two angles here. There's the pickiness angle, where I think you could justify never eating an egg or a salad. We were recently given some duck eggs that are sitting in our fridge, and I tried one of them. Tasted a little bit different, was a little bit weird. I would never want one again. If I had never tried a chicken egg, I imagine I would feel similarly, that it's kind of gross and weird. And so I get that. I also get that a salad includes lots of vegetables, things that people don't like sometimes. But the thing with the salad is that you can specifically curate or order your salad to include only things that you already know that you like. And so it's ridiculous to not have tried a salad in that context. And then the social context is you're never going to be socially obligated to eat an egg, almost ever. You make them in your home for breakfast, and you could just simply decline to order them at a restaurant. Whereas if I've been over to people's homes many times where I'm served dinner with an accompanying salad, I would be rude to refuse to eat the salad. And I think because of the combination of those two things, it's much crazier to never have eaten a salad as an adult.
Listen, Noah is probably one of the most well-researched writers that we have in the fantasy space. And of course, he would come up with the right answer. That just makes sense. All right, let's go here to Shane Hallam, managing partner of Draft Countdown and co-host of the Devy Marketplace. Shane, which is more shocking for an adult to have never eaten, eggs or salad?
Look, this comes down to the question, right? The question is shocking. I think the egg is much more shocking to never have eaten, never have run into, never have touched. I talked to my wife about this. We did agree the salad is much sadder. That's just telling people you don't eat vegetables, your vegetables. So I think the egg is more shocking. The salad is a little bit sadder.
No, that's not right. That is not right. We're going to get you out of here because that was not the right answer. Colin Decker, a co-founder here at Campus to Canton and co-host of Campus Life. Colin, which is more shocking for an adult to have never eaten, eggs or salad?
Yeah, I'm going to stick with the way the question is framed, the more shocking part, and it's definitely an egg. When you're a kid, you're basically force-fed eggs. Eggs are a staple of breakfast. Scrambled eggs, omelets, egg sandwiches. There's just so many different types of ways to make eggs for a morning that, when you're a kid, like, what are you going to do? Just always eat like Pop-Tarts and cereal and stuff? Like, you need something actually there. So it's more shocking to have never eaten an egg before. I also hate vegetables too, notorious vegetable hater. So I don't eat salads at all. So this was an easy one for me.
Yeah, I you know what? Get out of here. Just get out of here. Get out of here. Just get all the way out of here. Hannah Lay, let's come back to you on this. This is the woman, the only woman on this panel. All right. So I feel like your vote actually means something here. Hannah, please tell these people which is more shocking for an adult to have never eaten, eggs or salad?
Okay, I'm going to go the youth route. You don't feed a baby a salad, but you do feed babies and young children eggs. And if you've had neither, you probably think Austin Reed will be the starting quarterback for Western.
All right, I made a wrong decision by coming to you last, Hannah. I'm sorry. We're going to have to kick you out of here, too. It's just absolutely ridiculous. It's preposterous. You all did not take this seriously. But we want to thank all of our panelists for hanging out. A lot of them are still here in the back, so they might even join us for the show. And, if any of them do want to join, just shoot us a note here in the private chat. You guys have got the show sheet. We are live. This is the Devy debate. Austin, Chris, you guys are here now. come on now. I mean, I'm right. Like adults.
Why
eat
do
salads.
I not get to defend my position like, at all?
Matt's been on the whole
You
time.
get to sit here this
Sit
whole
right over
time
him.
and talk about how eggs this,
Matt's
eggs
just
that,
eye candy.
eggs, and I just got to sit here and take every shot fired. Look, I'm with my boy Colin. We had this discussion recently. If you guys listen to Canton Bound, I'm a very picky eater. I know Noah made some great points. You can't curate a salad to however you want, except I've never tried Thousand Island, whatever. I'm not trying to eat lettuce. I'm not a rabbit. I don't even eat carrots. I eat green peas. That's it. I'm a meat and potatoes guy. My dad raised me that way. My wife hates it. She tries to get me up. I'm probably going to die in 5 years because of that. I just don't eat healthy. It's just not what I do. So I've never tried it. I've tried it once. About a month ago, my brother got married. We went to a very fancy restaurant. As Noah brought up, what did they bring us before like our beautiful filet mignons? It was a salad. You know what I did? My wife's like, just try it. I'm like, nope, I'm good. Thanks. Here you go. And pushed it right off to the side. If we went to somebody's house and they offered me a salad, I say, no, thank you. And if that was rude, don't ever invite me back again. I'll be perfectly fine with that. I don't care. Not going to hurt my feelings. That's all I got to say. Eggs all day. I had eggs earlier.
So I got a question for Felix, since this is his moderation, and he posed the question. Felix, you have children.
Oh, yeah, I do.
Do you feed them salad?
Yeah, I do. So we've all eaten salad since we were very, very young. Yes.
Do you feed them eggs?
And eggs. Yes. I'm the only one who doesn't eat eggs. First of all, they smell gross. They look gross. Why would I put that in my mouth? An omelet smells good. I do. I feed it to them, but I do not eat it myself.
Omelets are delicious.
They look good. They look good.
Delicious.
You can put meat and potatoes in an omelet. That's why Matt's all over it.
I
He's a
love
meat and
omelets.
potatoes guy.
Oh, and double
Meat,
cheese. I love it. I am all
cheese,
for omelets.
peppers. All of that smells good, but I just couldn't do it. Austin, you've got like the final word on this.
Oh, not to take a shot at anybody, because I know it's Scott Fish who I love that doesn't eat the salads, but adults that are like proud that they don't eat salad are like adults that are proud that they don't read books. Like
I don't.
It's the same level of like,
and
I'm not saying,
that
Scott phrased it as like, I'm proud I've never eaten a salad. But it does sound like Matt phrased it that way, and that's really what brought it to the forefront.
You know, it's not
Guess who's not
your day?
proud, but
Your days in the industry.
I know.
Your days in
We're
this
gonna have to find
industry
a
are
new
numbered.
CEO for Campus
Your
to
days,
Ken.
yeah, we're done.
We'll
We're
take
not
it
even
into
going to
Cancel me.
voting.
Cancel me.
We're not done. Okay, that's enough hijinks. We are going to get into football here. There are some we're approaching the season, and you should have seen our chat this week about what we were going to talk about, because there isn't anything to talk about. But we did come up with some things for you, like we always do, like we have since November of 2020. This show is weekly. It will always be here for you. There are some burning questions as we are approaching the start of the season. Chris, I'm going to throw this first question to you because one of your favorite players is on the list. But one of those burning questions is, will FCS level football continue to serve as a pipeline for Devy NFL relevant FBS players? We've had Trey Lance. We've had the transfer last year of who am I thinking of? Went from FCS. I mean, even Bailey Zappe. Yes, which is more CFF relevant, but still, Bailey Zappe was drafted ahead of Sam Howell. So there's that question as to whether or not this pipeline will still exist for Devy, for NFL, for CFF purposes. Cameron Ward, Antoine Wells, Tyler Hudson are all examples. Cameron Ward at Washington State, Antoine Wells at South Carolina, and Tyler Hudson at Louisville. Do you think that we will continue to see a trend of these guys transferring up, so to speak, and then having an impact?
So I have a somewhat nuanced response, and I know that's not what we want to hear. We want to hear hot takes all the time. Division II and FCS players go that route for a reason. And a lot of the times it's a lack of exposure. Cameron Ward's a great example. He did not play in a offense that threw the ball at all in high school. Antoine Wells wasn't academically eligible coming out of high school. He went to FAMU, which is the Fort Union Military Academy in Virginia. So a lot of these guys, like we'll see that with Malik Benson going to Alabama next year. A lot of these guys that are either going JUCO or are going FCS are going that way for a reason. So I don't know if it's a developmental pipeline as much as it is once you're eligible to get there, then you can have that conversation about maybe you are truly a FBS talent, but you didn't have that opportunity. I think the more pressing development question that we're going to see, especially in the NIL and transfer era, is are we going to see more kids transfer from lower P5 or G5 schools that develop over time and go to higher end Power 5 schools and then get drafted? I think that's the more likely development pipeline than FCS going to the NFL, because I think FCS kids are mostly guys who just missed the process and like were left out for whatever reason, basically extenuating circumstances. So no, I guess is the way I look at it. I think it's just guys just don't have the opportunity. And that's mostly it. I think the best transfer that's in this class besides Cameron Ward is Jared Verse, the edge at Florida State. And David and I were talking about him in our Slack today. Like, this dude didn't play edge in high school. When was he going to have a chance to play edge at a Power 5 level? Now he's at Florida State and one of the best transfers in the class. So it's a really interesting question, but no. Sorry, that was long, but it is a really nuanced discussion because it's not set the way that I think people think it is.
So, Chris, just to ask you real quick, you said, the FCS and below kind of serves for a lot of these kids as people that didn't get enough exposure. Are you suggesting that we're going to solve that issue by getting more kids exposure? I mean, I think that's always going to happen. It always has happened. It obviously happens less than it did in like 1950, where some kid was, like the Steelers, they're huge 1974 draft. A bunch of those guys they drafted from like really small HBCUs and like other schools because like no one had ever heard of them. Like it happens less, but that's still always going to happen, right? Or, a kid has a major growth spurt and goes from a wide receiver to like an offensive tackle, or like, this kind of stuff can happen every year.
I don't think it serves as a pipeline in terms of development the same way that it is just kids who probably are FBS talents that aren't playing there. Like, there's a big difference between players transferring from Boise State or Vanderbilt to go to Alabama than Cameron Ward going to Washington State, or Jared Verse going to Florida State. Antoine Wells is another great example. Those are like very different scenarios. So sure, it serves as a pipeline, but the resources that we've had around recruiting and how much better we're getting at it and how much better exposure we're having, I think it's going to happen less and less, actually.
Yeah, I think this is really a Cameron Ward question because, we've already, in two respects. One, his head coach followed him to Washington State the same way Zach Kittley followed everyone over from Houston Baptist to Western Kentucky. But Cameron Ward already being projected in the first round of some NFL mock drafts, and he's going to have plenty of opportunity to show his arm. He's in a Mike Leach air raid system, but they also throw the ball downfield. So he's going to be able to show his consistency and his ability to make NFL type throws. So we could see schools like a Washington State or a school that is on the FBS fringes attempt to go to the FCS level for talent if we continue to see this working, because it worked last year with Houston Baptist, Western Kentucky. Let's see if it works this year with the folks there from Incarnate Ward going over to Washington State. All right. Matt Bruning, I'm coming to you with this one first because, again, one of your Ohio State Buckeyes is among those mentioned. It's put up or shut up time for Mario Williams, Marvin Harrison Jr., and JoJo Earle, all second-year players. Are the ratings for these players, are they going to show to be warranted or not? And if not, who will replace them?
I think it's warranted for two of them, and that's Marvin Harrison Jr. and Mario Williams, actually, because of the offense he'll be in with Caleb Williams and Lincoln Riley. I mean, Felix, you and me have been here on Marvin Harrison for literally over a year. He was in our top 20 to start the year as a freshman.
Mocked and ridiculed.
Of course, Miss Spears.
Mocked and ridiculed. Go ahead.
And so I think his ranking, I mean, I have him as wide receiver 3. I believe Austin has him there too. I don't know where everybody else has him, but I think his ranking right there is well-deserved, especially after the season we expect him to have. And Mario Williams, I imagine I'm probably the lowest on him, and I have him on as 15 in my wide receiver rankings. And I still think he might be even warranted a little bit more than that because he's probably going to produce in that offense. JoJo Earle is the one that scares me because he didn't do a lot during spring. They continue to bring in all of these transfer wide receivers. He's going to likely be, from everything I read early on in spring, the slot wide receiver. And if you go back to Bill O'Brien's Penn State days, go to his Houston Texan days in the NFL, wide receivers in the slot have never produced for him. So that worries me a lot with the guys that they're bringing in and him being there. He's the one that I feel like maybe we have. I have him in my top 12 right now. And I feel like he could easily, after this year, if he does not even have a decent season, could easily fall off here and be, I don't know that I'd drop him super low, but he would not be in my top 12. And I mean, guys behind him, I mean, Troy Franklin, Austin's guy, Lorenzo Styles, Ja'Cory Brooks could end up jumping him. DJ Allen, those are guys that are all lower that I think could have better seasons than JoJo Earle this year that could easily jump him in the ranking. So he's the one for me. I think Marvin Harrison and I already forgot who the other, Mario Williams are safe. They will produce. I don't see them falling at all, but JoJo Earle is the one that concerns me.
Mox, I mean, do you think that we're headed to green pastures for all three of these guys? I mean, I kind of agree with Matt that Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to be on the perimeter catching passes from CJ Stroud. I kind of don't see how he could fail. I heard on a podcast here recently that, there was the thought that maybe Emeka Egbuka overtakes him, but Emeka Egbuka is a different type of receiver, plays a different type of position. I think that Emeka Egbuka is going to, take over for Jackson Smith and Jigba in the slot when he's gone. I don't really think that he is a threat to the play style and the type of wide receiver that Marvin Harrison Jr. is. He's pretty safe. The question for me really is Mario Williams, can he be a prolific 1B to Jordan Addison? And then JoJo Earle, given what we saw with the drops and inconsistency, only in the spring game. And we're going to talk a little bit more about JoJo Earle. But do you see green pastures for all three of these guys?
You better hope so, and not you specifically, just the community at large better hope so, because there's no room, there's no margin for error at this point on any of those players. Like, they are basically ranked close to their peak. Marvin Harrison Jr. at 3. He ain't going any higher than Jackson with the Jig, but Keyshawn Boutte. He's not. There's no room for him to fail, despite having like below 10 passes and not a 100-yard game last season. Like, I think there's a lot of he's too big to fail based on where I've seen him going in drafts and in auctions. There's no room for downside at his price. Mario Williams has a little bit more wiggle room because he's outside of the top 12 for the most part. I do like him. I don't know what he projects at the next level. So I think his ranking's fine. JoJo Earle, I share very similar concerns to Matt. I've talked about it on the show too. I'm not sure I want to be investing in him. And I think having him top 12 or top 10 is pretty risky. And I actually would just target any of the other Alabama wide receivers that are kind of in the same mold as him. They brought in a bunch. Like, they have a bunch of guys who play that shifty, smaller slot type role. Aaron Anderson, Isaiah Bond. They got some coming in the next class, like Christian Leary. There's a bunch of guys that play similar enough positions where they can leverage them the same way. And JoJo Earle's a totally different level of athlete, in my opinion. But I don't think Alabama feels that way right now. And they haven't shown us they feel that way.
Austin, I was listening to Devy Marketplace this morning, I believe. And Kane called Marvin Harrison Jr. I think it was Kane called Marvin Harrison Jr. a sell. I mean, you've been, after his freshman season, and after you mocked and ridiculed both Matt and I,
Doesn't
you've
sound
kind
like
of
me.
been hot on him. I mean, there is some there. You can make quite a bang for your buck if you decide to retain that equity and trade Marvin Harrison Jr. now. I mean, talk about that position. I mean, should you just unload him at this point?
The thing about him is actually, like, I would not be opposed to selling him, but I don't see his stock really dropping this year. Like, if he's one of the top 3 wide receivers in Ohio State, he's going to put up pretty good numbers. I mean, what the third wide receiver on Ohio State do last year? Like 55 catches, 800 yards, and 7 to 8 touchdowns.
900.
Like
All 3 were almost at 1,000
okay.
last year.
So
yeah.
there we go. I thought someone missed some time with injury and it kept him down a little bit. So yeah, I mean, like, he's going to be one of those 3 guys. I mean, even if you project slightly lower, I mean, maybe they run the ball a little more this year since they have Travion and a couple other guys there. I don't know exactly, but like, I think he'll just basically do exactly what he's expected, because I don't think anybody expects him to lead that wide receiver room. So I think that he doesn't have to do that to cash in on like his current value. And even if he drops a little bit below, like even if like Buechner ends up being the wide receiver 2 there, it's still like, oh, he was the top wide receiver in the same recruiting class as Marvin Harrison was. And they're probably also like, and the odds are they probably both had really good years. So I actually I think, yeah, I mean, he's probably close to the peak of his value, but I think he's actually a relatively stable asset unless he just suffers some sort of injury this year that would drop him a little bit. So I don't think you have to sell him to cash in right now. The only thing I will say about Mario Williams that I think everyone just kind of ignores about this, and granted, like, Mario Williams and Caleb Williams came over together from Oklahoma. There's obviously chemistry there. And I don't think they were a package deal like Dart and Trig were, but I think they still like kind of were sniffing around the same places together. Like, Addison comes in and Gary Bryant is still there. And I think Gary Bryant can be enough of a thorn in the side of Mario Williams this year, because I think they're kind of similar players. So I'm interested to see how that plays out, because I really do think that we could see like both of those guys get like 600 yards receiving and kind of eat into what the other one kind of does best.
I agree with you on I still think that Mario Williams can play outside and be a vertical threat. I don't know that Gary Bryant Jr. is necessarily that. I think that he's more of a slot player, but I do agree with you that their slot roles are similar. And I think that Gary Bryant Jr., not only Gary Bryant Jr., but your boy Michael Jackson, I think that he's a good player too. And I thought that he started to come on-ish towards the end of last season. So
I saw you, Mox, by the way. I got you. That's great. I think the one thing with that, though, is we're all arguing Mario Williams still probably outproduces JoJo Earle. And if he does something in that offense, we're all assuming Jordan Addison goes on, right? Like, he goes on to the NFL. He's not staying another year, more than likely, at which point he's going to be at worst the 2, again, in a very highly productive Lincoln Riley offense. Where JoJo Earle, you're almost betting on a Jameson Williams type season as a junior to vault any kind of value for it if he does nothing this year, or little to nothing.
Here's where I kind of disagree on everyone here with JoJo. I think people are overreacting a little bit to a spring game in which it was like a freaking downpour and he wasn't great, but he was targeted. Like, I think he got on the field last year as a freshman before any of the other freshmen. For some reason, we still love Ja'Cory Brooks, even though like a lot of the recruits they brought in this year were small, shifty guys, but a lot of the transfers they brought in are boundary guys. I don't think Jermaine Burton can play in the slot, and I think that they envision what's his name from Louisville playing on the boundary as well. Harrell, thank you. So like I still think he was the first on the field, like I said, and like his role hasn't really been recruited over or transferred over. Like, I still think he's a safe guy. So for me, like if he starts drifting into like the 4th round of startups, that would be the time for me to start buying him, because I think the ceiling is just so much more than that. And I'm also curious, like, I know Bob has never had like great slot receiver play, but like, has he ever had a great slot? Like, we don't really know.
Kiki Kuti was excellent.
Yeah, Houston. I mean, he's had some decent ones. My thing with that is, though, too, is I still think Burton and Harrell are probably the 1 and 2 in that offense. And with the way that offense is going to run, I still don't. JoJo's not going to get the volume, is what I think. I think he's still going to be. Maybe he's only behind Burton, but if Burton does anything like Jameson Williams did last year, like, I don't know that JoJo has a massive season.
I still think that we're getting a little ahead of our skis on Harrell. like I think the coaching staff brought him in because he's interesting, and they didn't have a speedy guy there necessarily, especially through the spring. But Jermaine Burton can play the Jamison Williams role. So, like, if push comes to shove, like, he can be the deep guy. He can be the guy that his speed scares a defense, like this uber athlete. I think people are saying Harrell is Jamison because they kind of are similar athletically, but I still think we're going to see a lot smaller of a role. Harrell doesn't scare me in terms of eating into anyone's meaningful production. I think he's going to be a lot more situational than people want to admit. But maybe I'll just be wrong twice in a row on that archetype in that offense. I don't know.
As far as the wide receiver,
100%.
As far as the wide position in spring, it was very clear that Jermaine Burton was the boundary wide receiver. It was very clear that JoJo Earle was the slot wide receiver. But that's just an extension of what we saw last year. Like you said, Austin, he was the first of those highly touted freshmen on the field, even though he wasn't there in the spring, and a Guy Hall and Ja'Cory Brooks was. And then he was immediately like splitting time with Slade Bolden in the slot. Slade Bolden had like a 90% slot rate, and before he was hurt, JoJo Earle had like an 88% slot rate. So JoJo Earle is going to be the slot wide receiver. And I disagree with you, Chris. I don't think that there are guys there in that locker room, including the freshmen, who can kind of replicate his skill set. Let's move on here to, and this question was influenced by the Burning the Red Shirt podcast that I was listening to recently. They were talking about these guys going at Western Kentucky and Kittley's moving over to Texas Tech. And it raises an interesting question as to who was responsible for Western Kentucky's success. Was it Bailey Zappe, the quarterback, the 4th-round draft pick to the New England Patriots? Or was it Zach Kittley, the offensive coordinator who is now at Texas Tech? Because I think all of us are, when we're later in C2C startups or supplemental drafts, we're like, all right, which Western Kentucky, which Texas Tech guys can I get who are still on the board? And I wish I had Hannah here, because Hannah is the Western Kentucky guru. I'm an idiot. I didn't tell her that we were going to be asking this question. But Austin, I mean, can I throw it to you? Do you have an answer for who do you think is more responsible for the success there, Kittley or Zappe? And really, this is a question as to whether or not the success that they had last year can be replicated in either Texas Tech or at Western Kentucky.
So Hannah just said that she's hopping on here in a second, I think. Do you want my lukewarm answer before we start? Like, the lukewarm answer is we'll find out this year.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
That's so lame. Come on.
I think it's the staff. The NFL is a lot different in that regard, where I think we had Brady and Belichick together for years, and we were like, and now I think we kind of think it was more Brady. College is just so much more about system that I think it's probably more the coaching staff and the position they put these guys in than Bailey Zappe. But I could be wrong, Hannah. I mean, you're the expert here, and your tie-dye. And they're not going to say shit to you about your tie-dye, even though they came after me a few months ago. I just want to throw that out there.
And Hannah, before you answer this question, let me just say that it is so important to know there are buy-ins with like a lot. I'm in some buy-ins with hundreds of dollars are the buy-in. And if you get the answer to this question right, that's just, you just won the college side of your leagues if you had the right stack. So Hannah, help us with this. Was it Zappe or was it the staff or some combination of both? Provide us some clarity on this.
So I think you kind of have to know the history of how that all went down. And it's my understanding that Helton wasn't pleased, obviously, with how 2020 went. He went after Kittley first. And it was either Helton or it was Zach Grant, or it might have been a combination of the both. So he goes after Kittley first. Kittley comes pretty much with Zappe. Zappe comes, I think, 3 days later. And with Zappe comes Stearns. Stearns has the condition that baby brother Josh Stearns comes. So I think it is possible it's a combination of all of that. I think it's really too soon to say, because all we've known of Kittley is Zappe. That's other than when he was with Tech, and he's had experience with those air raids and obvious success. So I'd say it's sort of like 60-40 leaning Kittley, 70-30 leaning Kittley. I do think there is more emphasis on the staff. He's also, Kittley brought over Hamby too, the offensive line coach, to Texas Tech.
Hannah, do you think that Western Kentucky is going to be able to replicate even 80% of the production that they produced last year? Because, I mean, I have Jared Doege as my starting quarterback, who's projected to be the starter there. In a lot of places, I've even drafted the Division II quarterback, Austin Reed, who I don't think is going to be the starter this year. I just want to, I have to have this position locked up. Am I doing the right thing? Do you think I'm doing the right thing by drafting Doege, drafting Malachi Corley, Davis Daywood, and Jaron Hall?
Yes, because, so Ellis leaves. So why would Ellis leave? And then Arbuckle stays. And Arbuckle has been Kittley's protege. And air raid. So a continuation of that air raid system. Then the air raid system, for better or for worse, the idea is that you can drop in any quarterback. It's a quarterback friendly system. So even if Doege doesn't have to have Zappe's numbers to be successful, and then you've already got an extremely deep receiver room. So it's almost like less pressure, may even win one more game than last year. I think they're even more primed for success than they were last year.
Hanalei is actually Hanalei is going to be our creative team lead at Campus to Canton. So a round of applause for Hannah, and she is excellent, absolutely excellent in covering Western Kentucky for us. So Hannah, you may have made some folks some money who are still out there drafting in the 15th round, and they're trying to figure out if Western Kentucky players are still worth investing in. So Hannah, appreciate you.
Bye.
All right. Anybody else got any other thoughts on that conversation?
I'll add one.
Go ahead, Max.
Yeah, go. No. Okay. The only thing that I will add here is that and I hate following up on Hannah because Hannah literally is the expert. So it's a lot of pressure on me. Tyson Helton, the head coach, was under June Jones. He was at Western Kentucky as the offensive coordinator under Jeff Brom. That year, he happened to have the quarterback who led the country in passing yards and touchdowns.
His point was so good. He froze.
Just froze.
He's really letting that marinate.
Somebody needs to take a picture of Chris Moxley's face here because he just froze.
He's making a very good point. What I'll just say, the only reason I would probably lean a little bit more on Kittley is if you go, he obviously, the last time he was an offensive coordinator before going to Western Kentucky was at Houston Baptist. And if you go look at what the team did points-wise before that, they were scoring like roughly 14 to 21 points a game. If you go to the 3 seasons or 2 seasons that he was an offensive coordinator, they're putting up like 45 to 66 points a game.
Wow.
So and granted, Houston Baptist, we're not talking about them playing in the SEC or anything, but I think just the massive change of 20 points a game to upwards of 45, I think speaks to just how good he is as a coach. And I think Hannah also kind of intimated that when she said, he came first and then brought Bailey Zappe with him. I don't disagree with her. She knows much more about Western Kentucky than I do. So they may have a very good season this year. I don't think they're going to fall off just because Kittley left, but I do think he was a major reason in the success that they showed last year.
Well, I've got places where I've got Doege, I've got show places, I've definitely got Donovan Smith, probably too many places. So that's actually one of the questions that I cannot wait to see is like, do we see 2 highly explosive offenses in Texas Tech and Western Kentucky because of Zach Kittley's influence? And if we do, Zach Kittley's only going to be at Texas Tech for a year, maybe 2, before he's at USC, Alabama, Texas, one of these Power 5 blue blood schools, and I've said that before. All right, let's move on here. So we, again, and thinking about this season that is quickly approaching, we're thinking about the games that are going to the first quarter of games. What are some of these pivotal games? And so we have each picked a game, and we're predicting what or where we think the fantasy relevant players in those games will be by the time that game is played. Hopefully I didn't make that too complicated, but maybe I can give an example. But before I do, you got to know that we have merchandise at campustocanton.com. If you are a part of this army at growing the format and you are a supporter of Campus to Canton and you are waiting for the flood to come when college fantasy sports is more mainstream, support us. Go get a t-shirt. I had my C2C shirt on earlier this year with that C2C logo. You can also get the Austin To Be Honest shirt. That's one of my favorites, actually, that Matt and I designed without Austin's consent at all.
Lawsuit pending.
Might I add. We've used his name, image, and likeness and are profiting from. Actually, we're not profiting at all from it. So go buy an Austin shirt. Go get some merchandise on the website. So the game that I picked, and I picked first because I wanted to have this game, is week 2, Texas at Alabama. I'm going to start with Alabama first. I think by the time this game is played, which is only week 2, Alabama opens up with Utah State. Jahmyr Gibbs is going to be widely considered to be a first-round NFL draft pick, or he will be after this game is played. So at Georgia Tech, there weren't threats outside. There weren't perimeter threats for the safeties to be concerned with. At Alabama, you've got Jermaine Burton, who was the fastest man at his regional in March of 2018 at the opening, verified 4.33 speed. He can take the top off of the defense. You've got Tyler Harrell, who averaged 30 yards a catch with Malik Cunningham at quarterback. You've got the Heisman Trophy winner, Bryce Young. And even though Bryce doesn't run, you still have to account for him in the read option game. He's still going to move linebackers out of place. I just think that Alabama's offensive line is going to be splitting defenses like the Red Sea, and we're going to see Jahmyr Gibbs accelerating through some wide open holes, making people miss in the open field. And if they use him as a pass catcher, people are going to be looking at Jahmyr Gibbs like, oh, this guy is comparable or on a similar level to Bijan Robinson, who's going to be playing in the same game. I cannot wait for this game. It is absolutely ridiculous how many fantasy relevant players there are in this game. We mentioned JoJo Earle. Here's what I think about JoJo. So I think he's going to be fine for a lot of the things that I said earlier. I think that there's no one else who can really that has a similar skill set. This team allotted 278 slot snaps to Slade Bolden last year. The next highest was John Mechie at 147. Now, I do like Isaiah Bond. He can do some of the things that JoJo Earle can do, but he's a true freshman and he wasn't there in the spring. And I think of him, at least right now, more of as a straight speed guy. My concern, and I've expressed this concern previously, would be with Ja'Cory Brooks, because I think that Jermaine Burton is going to be a focus of the passing game. I think that Jahmyr Gibbs is going to be a focus of the passing game. Just proximity-wise, JoJo Earle is closer to the football than Ja'Cory Brooks playing out there at the flanker. He's closer to the football. I think that Ja'Cory Brooks is going to be a secondary piece. I think that he's going to be the guy that's switched out for Christian Leary, for Tyler Harrell, for these people the freshmen and these transfers that they brought in. So I don't know what you can get for Ja'Cory Brooks if you wanted to trade him, but I think by week 2, we're going to be like, he's not a primary option in the passing game, despite being, a top 5 overall wide receiver in last year's class. Let's move over to Texas here. And Bijan's going to be Bijan. I think that Xavier Worthy, I don't really see how his stock could change. The two players that I have questions about are one, Quinn Ewers. Matt, how the hell could you think that Hudson Card is going to start week 1 when Hudson Card, you have said this before. You said like, you said that I'm going to make a big deal. You said that I'm going to make a big.
Here's what was said, and Austin actually said this, and I agree with Austin because Petty Felix will come out. What's going to happen is Quinn Ewers is going to come out in week 1 and have an amazing game, and then week 2 with a bad offensive line playing against one of the better defenses in the nation with Will Anderson, and I can't remember the other guy's name at the moment, but incredible guys who are going to be rushing the passer and make Quinn Ewers look bad, and you're going to come on here that Wednesday and be like, the golden child, prodigal quarterback, and go all this, Petty Felix crap on here, and then Quinn Ewers is going to come out the rest of the year and absolutely light it up, and you're not going to say a word. That's what's going to happen.
That doesn't sound like me.
That's what
that doesn't sound like me at all. That doesn't sound like me. That does not sound like me. But I feel like I thought that you had conceded at some point that Hudson Card may start, but it is a quarterback battle. Let's just say hypothetically that he doesn't start. There's no way that that's a good thing for Quinn Ewers. He better start from week 1 over Hudson Card, who couldn't beat out Casey Thompson, and you all think Casey Thompson is just terrible. Casey Thompson is a good player. He just has a fatal flaw that he can't throw the ball 30 yards. And then the other player, the other player is Isaiah Nayor. It may not be week 2, but I think Isaiah Nayor at some point, maybe in the Alabama game, if you're Alabama in your defense, you're going to be focusing on Bijan Robinson. You're going to be focusing on Xavier Worthy. Isaiah Nayor could have a very big game on a national stage, and I think that he could vault himself into a late day 1 conversation. Big, lanky, possession wide receiver, very much a throwback. I mean, if this was like 1997, I'd be like, yeah, Isaiah Nayor, potential first-round draft pick. But he could have a big game given that the focus is going to be elsewhere. But he's a very, very good player. And if Quinn Ewers is as good as you say he is, then that's going to be a good option for him. Huge catch radius. That's going to be a place for Quinn Ewers to get passes into. So that's my game. That is my pivotal game. Week 2, Texas versus Alabama. Austin, you're up next. Oh my!
I don't have 8 minutes planned like you did. Is that okay?
Oh yeah, sure. Go
Okay,
ahead.
I just wanted to make sure.
I'm just laughing at the game that I hear on the show sheet. I mean,
what, Pitt WVU? You're not excited for Pitt WVU? No one? Backyard brawl for the first time in like 8 years? No one's excited for this game? I'm very excited. And I actually think it will be interesting. That's not my choice, by the way, but it's Slova's versus JT Daniels week 1. Like, I think that there's a lot of intrigue there. I think Pitt's going to win pretty easily, but who knows? No, my real answer is Utah, Florida State. They play each other the opening week of the season. It's intriguing from just like purely an entertainment standpoint, especially because I picked Utah to go undefeated and make the college football playoff this year. So I think, this is kind of one of the bigger speed bumps on the road for them to do that. So that's reason number 1. But really, in terms of fantasy or Devy type assets that we're interested on this team, I think it's a really interesting test for Utah, who doesn't play a lot of these SEC style defenses. We've seen all these jokes about USC and UCLA moving to the Big Ten, and they're going to see a fullback for like the first time ever. Like, it's different offenses and different defenses from what they normally see. So I'm interested to see how they match up. They do lose a couple things, but they bring back their starting quarterback, Cam Rising, who's getting kind of like some sleeper-ish, first, second round quarterback type hype. I don't think he's quite that level of player, but he is an intriguing guy. He's mobile. He's kind of what the NFL is looking for right now, and will be coming back like 2 years off an injury now. So I'm interested to see how he looks. Contavion Thomas look like he belongs. I think he's more Zach Moss, which is kind of lazy, but also not, because that's just kind of what that coaching staff likes in the backfield there. Not really quite an NFL starting caliber athlete, but he's a good player. Obviously, Florida SEC defense, is he fast and athletic enough to do something there? And then the tight ends as well, Kincaid and Keithy. I'm interested to see how they do in that game. Both have gotten some decent draft buzz. And then on the flip side, Anthony Richardson, his first season going in as a starter, how does he look? How does he handle being the guy and not like, the guy we bring off the bench if things aren't going well? How does he handle that? And then just the coaching staff as a whole, how are they incorporating Montrell Johnson, who everyone seems to really like, came over with the coaching staff? Are there other running backs there? Do they have an alpha wide receiver? Like, I think these are all questions that we won't really have an answer for until we see them go out there and try to do it. So I think we'll see some interesting answers from week one out of both of those teams. And so I'm really interested to see how that game plays out. If I'm on the night show that night, I want to cover that game. I'm already laying dibs to that. Matt, whoever, Felix, I want that one.
I have no control over anything here, so I don't know why you throw my name out first. Clearly, because I didn't get to talk about either one of the games I wanted to, which was obviously Alabama, Texas, because of my love for Quinn. And I really didn't want to go Ohio State, Notre Dame, because I get enough hate for talking about them as it is. So I decided to pivot. No, I'm glad someone talks about it, because I actually do think it's going to be a big game, but I'm not going to do that here. I'm going week one, what they're considering, I believe, the college football kickoff game of the year, and that's Oregon versus Georgia. And I think it's a massive game for both teams in general. Whoever wins, that could really set that team in motion for the rest of the season. If Oregon pulls off the upset, I think that sets up a battle with Utah for the possible Pac-12. If Georgia wins, obviously they're probably going toward an undefeated season. But I just think that Oregon has a lot here that maybe people aren't looking at. They look at Georgia and they say, look, coming off national championship, one of the greatest defenses we've ever seen. I'm just going to go out there and dominate everybody. They lost a lot of players. Oregon has a top 5 rated offensive line, and we've seen, I know this is not like statistical, not proven, like there's no way to actually back this up outside of Bo Nix just has magic in these games, and he finds ways to make plays. I think he could be good behind a top 5 offensive line. You've got Troy Franklin, you've got Byron Cardwell, you've got Seven McGee. Unfortunately, their tight end, rest in peace, passed away. I thought probably could have been a big piece of that offense as well. Like, they've got a decent offense, and Dan Lanning knows Georgia. He knows what's good and bad about that offense. Like, again, I know the Stetson Bennett truther is going to come from me. I don't care. Like, he's an okay college quarterback. He is not great. This defense, Braden Swinson and DJ Johnson coming off the edge, 2 of the higher rated edge players in all of college football. They've got Justin Flo and Noah Sewell, linebacker. They actually have some pretty good defensive backs as well, and Christian Gonzalez and Jaleel Florence. I think they're going to be able to get after Stetson Bennett a little bit here. And if they do, I think it's going to be a close game because Dan Lanning knows this team. Like, I would not be surprised if Oregon pulls off the upset. So I think just what Oregon has offensively with those players. And I do think it's a big thing for Georgia as well. Stetson Bennett going back after trying to repeat as a walk-on. Great story. Can he do it again? But I don't know that they necessarily have the offensive firepower either to keep up with Oregon if they start putting points on the board.
I just wanted to make the point that if you are listening to us for the first time and you're not very familiar with college football, Justin Flo has to be in the top 5 as far as most entertaining players to watch for Oregon. Now, he has been hurt because he plays with reckless abandon, but I think I can't remember. He has a single-digit number, I believe, at linebacker. The linebacker for Oregon, Justin Flo. Just go watch his high school highlight tape, but he is just a player that you want to keep tabs on if Oregon is coming into the Eastern time zone or if you want to stay up and watch games on the West Coast. All right. Who are we moving over here to? Moxley? You closing us out? All right.
I waited to put this on the sheet because I wanted to see if Matt was going to claim it as Ohio State, Notre Dame. The one I was going to pick, because I just think it's absurd, is Northwestern Nebraska. That game is being played in Ireland, as if the U.S. have not hurt the Irish enough in the last 150 years. We got to send them Northwestern to play in Dublin. Game I actually picked, Notre Dame, Ohio State. There's a lot of questions that are going to be answered in this matchup. Is Ohio State's defense back? I tend to think it will be. I think they have very good athletes. I think that the hiring of Jim Knowles, excellent hire, scheme fit, etc. Stroud is not a question to me. I don't think there's a question with Stroud, and I don't think there's a question with the receiving weapons. Jackson Smith and Jacob is fine. I think Marvin Harrison is going to start.
Chris, are you like high or something? Like, are you? I mean, I don't want to interrupt you, but like, are you drunk? I mean, what's going on?
I was trying to adjust my mic because
all right. I'm trying to get better at calling out stuff that, like, the audience would notice. Chris is in the process of trying to adjust his mic because yes, we all heard the same thing that you heard, audience, and so Chris is trying to be a professional, and I'm sitting here teasing him about it because he's trying to keep the show on the road. So, no.
Anyway, I don't know if my mic is fixed, but we're rocking with it. Receiver room is going to be great. I don't have a lot of questions. I do think Notre Dame secondary is pretty good. They brought in Brandon Joseph, who I think is probably one of the better safeties in the country. I think he's a first rounder. So they're going to get challenged a little bit. I think this is going to be one of the better secondaries and defenses that they face on their schedule, despite playing in a pretty good defensive conference. So I think we're going to see what some of these secondary wide receivers are made of. Can Emeka Egbuka separate? Can Marvin Harrison be who we want him to be in this game? I think it's going to answer a lot of questions about playing against upper tier defensive competition on the Notre Dame side of the ball. Obviously, we have a brand new offense. I think Tommy Rees is finally going to be able to do his thing. Brian Kelly definitely had no interest in doing so. Tyler Buechner is the number one question here, and I think he's one of the bigger questions of the 2022 season because he's a really athletic quarterback. He has a lot of physical traits, but he hasn't played a lot of football. Like his last 2 years of football, last 3 years, really, he hasn't played much at all. He's really raw. And so I think it's going to be really challenging for him going up against a good Ohio State defense that I expect to be much improved, but I want to see how he handles that adversity. He was impressive at stints last year, and I think he can be a quality player. The running back room, I think I want to see what the rotation looks like behind Chris Tyree. Chris Tyree is more of a gadgety player. He's not very big. He's a solid receiving back, but they've had injuries there. Logan Diggs is out for the majority of the year. I want to see what that room really looks like. I think there could be potential for both C2C and Devy in that room, depending on what the rotation actually solidifies into. I think they have like 3 or 4 backs that are kind of interesting behind Tyree, but they did lose some depth. Lorenzo Styles, obviously a big question for me. I think we all really like him here, but I'd like to see him go up against some of these quality corners. I think the Ohio State secondaries could be so much better. And so I really want to see him against good competition and understand how quality he is. And I don't think his brother will play in this game, but his brother, Sonny Styles, is on Ohio State, which is pretty cool.
He'll play.
Yeah, so if he's playing, it'll be cool to see them go up. He's a safety, I believe. I don't think he's a corner. I think he's a safety. But yeah, this Notre Dame team is going to be really interesting. So I think it's a really interesting matchup to see how this offense goes against a potentially improved defense, and then what tertiary options do for Ohio State outside of Travion, Jackson Smith and Jigba, CJ Stroud. So this game, I think, is going to inform a lot of opinions.
I never want to assume that, folks have seen these guys to the extent that we have. Tyler Buechner his potential is at the high end of whatever you think the high end of dual threat quarterbacks to be. And how good is Tyler Buechner to have played his first 2 years, got injured his junior year, then COVID was his senior year, and then goes to Notre Dame, has not really been recruited over, and there was not a transfer quarterback brought in. So they must think that he's really, really good. And again, another exciting player to watch. We covered a lot of ground today. We tackled a really sensitive and important issue to start the show. We asked some of the burning questions that we're looking forward to addressing or being addressed in the first quarter of the season, and players that we're looking forward to seeing how their trajectories shake out. You got to support the website. Subscribe to campus2canton.com. We're putting out more YouTube content. Listen, you are going to want to be with us during the season. We've got way more people who are paying attention to what we're doing now than we did last season. You're going to want to be subscribed to Campus to Canton on YouTube. You're going to want to be subscribed to Campus to Canton on Apple Podcast or wherever you get your podcast. Support what it is that we're doing in trying to bring this format to the masses. We're going to be here. We're going to be loud, and we're going to knock on that door, quite frankly, until it falls down. That's going to be our show for tonight. Apologies to Kirk Herbstreit. We ran out of time. We will get him rescheduled soon. For Austin Nace and Matt Bruning and Chris Moxley, I'm Felix Sharp. Good night and good luck.
Don't forget the ranking summit tomorrow. You know.
Yes.
I want to on you. I mean, if you know, so.
Oh, God.
I didn't send an invite to Mike, so I think he'll be on soon.
So did I.
Oh no!
I was really hoping
another 2 hours.
I was really hoping to like go to bed early tonight. So I was.
Get out of here. Get.
Well, here he comes.
Are you gonna download and
Here
upload
he
it?
comes. I don't have a problem with that. Come on, I do that.
Yeah, I know. So
We need
do
to
I.
teach Mike. We need to teach Mike how to do this. Mike,
Yeah.
we've got to teach you how to cut the audio and put it in both.
No,
places.
I'm gonna let you know. I'm gonna let you know right now, Mike. You've got 29 minutes. I'm cutting this at 10 p.m. Central, so you've got 29 minutes. Talk your heart out. Whatever you want to say. You got 29 minutes.
Mike
you're
off to a great
Valerie
start.
comes
Great
on.
start.
Okay.
And mutes himself. The host of the
The whole
after
time.
show.
I really appreciate how every 2 weeks you guys call out Felix on his red flag behavior on Twitter with the egg stuff, and I feel like it's something like every other week we learn something new about Felix.
It's pretty bad. Felix, are you going to eat
Yeah.
eggs at the expo?
Dude, you
I will
better.
eat eggs at the expo if you will bring your mom on the show. How about that?
You're like, yeah, but Felix, I can't believe you didn't eat eggs. You're
Don't
like
you
a
think it's
thick
good
guy.
content
Yeah.
to
good
eat
content.
eggs at the
It
expo?
will be. I mean, just
I
get
I thought you were
breakfast
the,
at the
I thought you were
hotel.
the content guy. I thought you were the
Yeah.
content guy.
Get breakfast at the hotel. We'll film
That
it. We'll send
sounds
it to
so
Hannah for
gross.
her to put it on Instagram. We'll see your reaction.
That sounds
So
gross.
just
He's gonna start out with powder eggs first.
I would not say the eggs at the hotel is the way to send Felix.
Yeah.
I think we should
Hey.
get him like a nice eggs Benedict or something.
No,
where
we
it's
don't
like-
have to
Yeah.
get him good eggs. He's just got to eat them. It doesn't have to be a good thing or bad thing.
Yeah, the buffet that's been sitting out for like 2.5 hours.
and
That
it's not
sounds
real
perfect.
eggs.
Not real
I can't
eggs.
even think of. There's not a bone in my body that is thinking well of putting some some scrambled eggs in my mouth. That just sounds gross.
There are other
Yeah, there's
forms.
Other forms of eggs. They come in all.
Yes,
shapes.
hard boiled, whatever you
Double
want to say.
eggs,
Yes, it just
something side
sounds-
up, over medium.
When
I
if I
think
get a
eggs
breakfast
Benedict
sandwich
works.
and it has, if I get a breakfast sandwich and it has egg in it, I will slide that little circle out of it. And
What do you eat? A bacon cheese bagel?
you get an egg McMuffin, but just the muffin.
excuse me, and McDonald's is not a sponsor of this particular podcast, but I had a steak, egg, and cheese. This is my order. I had a steak, egg, and cheese bagel from McDonald's. I said, please, no egg and no breakfast sauce. And at Waffle House, drop the mic, I get the T-bone dinner, no eggs, double hash browns, smothered and covered.
Jesus.
That's a lot of
What's
free.
wrong with you?
That's a lot of free sponsorship airtime.
That's true.
Waffle House, McDonald's, come holler at us.
That's true. I can't wait to meet everybody in person, though, by the way, at the expo. Very hyped about it.
You're going to be surprised.
We've already
how short
met
I
in
am.
person, Mike.
I know we have, but I already miss you. I want to see you again with eggs. I'll bring eggs. I'll bring all types of eggs. I'll be like, we got hard-boiled eggs. I'll be like Bubba Gump, being like, we got hard-boiled eggs. We got these eggs. We got these eggs.
Boiled eggs.
All these
Egg
eggs.
soup, egg salad.
Eggs.
Rank the eggs, Mike.
Egg gumbo.
Give us the top 10 egg. How it's
I
prepared.
don't- Omelets got to be
Come on,
number
come
one.
on.
'Cause you can just do so much with omelets. You can just customize it however you want. I mean, it's kind of a cop-out answer, but you can put anything in an omelet.
You got to give us the list.
I'll make a list for you. I got to think about it. I can't think about it off the top of my head right now.
We'll keep talking. Dawson's asking, when is the expo? It's the weekend of August 12th. It's the 12th through the.
It is August 13th and 14th.
13th and 14th.
14th is the main day. That's Sunday, with everything going on at the convention center. But there will be parties and stuff going on that Saturday as well. If you guys want to come out and
3 weeks
hang out
away.
with all of us.
Yes.
I think I
I'll
want to
argue
do
about Gabe Davis in person.
Nope. Nope.
I think I want to do the quarterback skills competition, and quite frankly, I don't know that there's anybody other than J-Wack who could compete with me in that. If I'm being honest.
You should
I don't think Jared's doing any of that stuff. He
Is
said he's
anyone
too
doing
old
the
and
flag
fat.
football game?
He's too cool.
Yeah. There is a flag football game. We'll be at lunch while the flag
I'm
football
not doing
game is
it.
going on.
I'm not doing it.
Yeah, I haven't heard anyone doing it.
I know everybody is doing it. I know all the teams that are doing it, and someone's going to leave there with a blown ACL. I just know it.
Who would Hannah Levy, our center, ever holding it down?
Mike, I don't think your mic is on. Mike, I don't think I'm like.
It's on.
You sound a whole lot better when you're leaning close to it, but.
Oh, all right. Sorry.
Everybody's mic sounds weird.
For listeners not knowing, I wanted to let the founders here know that I came back from being in the field from the Army for the last time. It was a 2-week field exercise. I'm in a new unit now. It's an MP unit. It's the closest unit to Washington, D.C., so I'm not excited about election season coming up. But I got tear gas, which you do every single year, and I also got OC sprayed and tased at this, which was terrible. I've never been tased before, and I was like, hyping myself up, like, yeah, I'm going to be able to still tackle this guy, no problem. I got it. Just fell flat. Just instant, just.
What does it feel like?
You ever been bit like a horse fly? Like how strong that is? Okay, imagine just someone like reaches into your body, grabs like a whole muscle group, and then just twists it. And just
so it's like a muscle. It's like a bad cramp.
It's like the worst cramp of your life, and it like holds it, like you can't like really move. Like so, for a taser to work on someone, it needs to hit your upper and lower body. But if it just hits your upper body, then you just lose motion in your upper body.
So you'd be running around like this.
Yeah, I mean, you potentially yes, it'd be very hard to, but yeah, you can move your legs and stuff.
Sounds like you're planning to subdue some black and brown people in Washington D.C. So.
No.
No. So, we're all ready. We've got the training down.
If you do get tear gas, though, for everyone listening, breathe through your nose. You get an extra 2 minutes. After that, it sucks. You get some extra time there.
Got any other hot tips for us?
Don't
get tased. Don't get tear gas.
Yeah, 25 feet for the taser. So if you're farther than 25 feet, you should be good. You should feel pretty good about yourself. Don't get closer than like 10, though. You should not feel it at that point. So, yeah, that's really about it. It was kind of boring, but
you should bring a taser. Let's bring a taser to the expo.
Oh, we should video
each other.
Yeah, we'll video.
That's great content. That's great content.
Well,
Felix has to take a bite of egg.
In high school, we did a
jackass.
Yeah, we did a contest with the dog collars to see how far someone could run by holding in their hand past the electric fence, like the invisible fence. We can do that.
You Southern boys are just different.
It's just, you get bored. It's kind of funny because as like the male brain just deteriorates being away from society for like 3 days, just 3 days, and like your sense of humor goes down to being like a 10-year-old. And it's just like ridiculous. And yeah, like wait for a transition time. You gotta come back into society. I can't go outside my house for like 3 days because I'll be like saying something inappropriate like every other second.
Quarantine yourself, basically.
Yeah, until I get mentally associated to like being an actual adult. So it's kind of amazing. But anyway, you think of, I have a lot of good ideas for Campus Can. You guys see in the project proposals all the time. They wouldn't take any of my good ideas for the Army. We had fake claymores and riot shields. Why can't we combine the two? Why can't I get claymore people while they have the riot shield? They can't allow that for safety reasons. And if they want to tear gas too.
What are we talking about here?
What is the
training? We have so each day, right? We have to get a certain thing done. It takes way too long. It takes multiple hours. That's just the process. But like, what if we combine these things? So like, we have to set up a claymore and fire off claymores to get claymore trained. We have to practice riot shield formations for multiple hours. Then we have to, the next day we do like tear gas, and that takes multiple hours because, well, your body has to flush out and all that other stuff. But anyway, why can't we just do all three at the same time? Why can't they just practice the formation, hit them with the claymore? It's rubber bullets, by the way, for everyone.
Makes sense.
Rubber bullets.
Give everybody riot gear, tear gas them, and then have them go find and disarm claymores. That sounds like a great time.
Yes, and then you
Canvas Can sponsored by Blackwater.
These are good ideas. No one want to take these.
They'd probably be able to afford a hefty sponsorship deal. So
if they're listening,
absolutely.
Well, at least consider it.
Also, so back
No
to the
bad
football
ideas.
stuff, though. I'm really excited about the Purdue and the Penn State game. No one want to talk.
what
about
would
that.
a segment be? What would a segment sponsored by Blackwater be called? That was a football segment.
Favorite targets.
Yeah.
That's right. I think that's pocket aces right there. I think that's pocket aces.
I haven't heard Felix laugh like that since we dressed up as him for Halloween and we turned the screen back.
Oh man, that's exactly what it would be called. That's exactly what it would be called. It would be like the crosshairs and oh man. That should be the end of the show. That's the end of that's the end of the show.
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't even get to say what you wanted.
It's okay.
Mike got to stay on here for